Reimagining Chapel. My name is Amanda Esco, and I am the director of the Religious Education Program here at the First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City. Thank you for being here today. Let's light our chalice. Do you have one at home? Go grab it if you do. I'm going to say the words, which I was reminded of, not that I really needed reminding, but this morning when the press conference celebrating Vicky Chavez's stay of deportation, we lit a chalice in our sanctuary, and Reverend Tom said these words: symbol of light, symbol of knowledge, symbol of warmth, symbol of freedom. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love. This week has been a buoy of hope for me. After our 3 years of helping Vicky here holding sanctuary at the First Unitarian Church, she is free. She gets to live where she wants. She gets to work where she wants. She gets to be in this country legally, and it's amazing. I am so proud of my friend Vicky for her ever-present hope and faith that things would turn out just this way. I'm also very proud of our community and the hard work we have done to help support Vicky over these years. It's been an amazing week. Thank you all for sharing with us in our joy. And that's what we're feeling, joy. I can't wait till we can share this joy with one another in person. As we begin Reimagining Chapel today, let's take a few moments for some deep breaths. I know when I'm excited, taking a deep breath helps settle me. So if you're able, stand up, feel those tootsies in the ground. If you're not, that's okay. Sit where you are. We're going to take a deep breath in through our nose, and then as I ring the bell, as you hear it, breathe out. You ready? Deep breath in through our nose. Let's do that 2 more times. Deep breath in through our nose. One last time. Deep breath in through our nose. I feel calmer already. How about you? Well, as we like to do for Reimagining Chapel, we share our joys and concerns. I shared my joy with you. My friend Vicky can live wherever she wants, and that makes me really happy. What's going well for you? I want you to share with the people that love you, that want to hear about you. Share your joys and concerns. I'll be right here waiting for you. Thank you for sharing your joys and concerns with the people that love you. It's a gift to be able to sit with another person and hear their heart. So thank you for giving that gift to another. Today's UU of the week is a prolific writer who I am in awe of her story. Get ready, friends. The most progressive intellectual writer from the Transcendentalist group out of Concord? Move over, boys. It's Margaret Fuller. Margaret Fuller was born on May 23rd, 1810, to Margaret Crane and Timothy Fuller. Margaret was a raised Unitarian with her parents very active in the church, the Cambridge Parish Unitarian Church. Her parents were very well educated, with her mother the leader of lively intellectual discussion groups, and her father a Harvard-trained lawyer. Eventually, Timothy was elected to Congress, where he went on to have 4 terms before retiring to start writing. Margaret received the very best education possible. She began to study at a very young age Latin, grammar, history, music, and other modern languages. Margaret was such a fast learner who soaked up all of this knowledge. In the evenings, she would actually have to recite back to her father all that she had learned that day. All of this work, though, came at a cost. Margaret suffered from sleeplessness and debilitating headaches, as well as poor eyesight. Additionally, she was not popular with her peers. They were off-put by how smart she was and how articulate she could speak on so many different topics. This obviously hurt Margaret's feelings, though, who longed for attention and friendship. After finishing her schooling, Margaret found companionship and work with several prominent Unitarians from Boston. She befriended Lydia Marie Child, James Freeman Clarke, and William Ellery Channing. With her friends, she began to write, publish articles in James Freeman Clarke's newspaper. She had plans to travel to Europe with friends. Her hope was that in Europe, her real literary adventures would begin. Unfortunately, Margaret's father died, sending her family into a financial tailspin. Suddenly, Margaret was thrust into the role of family caretaker, helping to protect her mother's financial stability, as well as teach her 6 younger siblings. Her family never recovered financially from the loss of her father, and Margaret struggled with money for the rest of her life. Unable to travel to Europe with friends, they urged Ralph Waldo Emerson to befriend Margaret and invite her to the transcendentalist oasis of Concord, Massachusetts. She visited his family in the summer of 1836 as he was finishing his book, Nature. Their relationship was complicated. At first, Emerson couldn't see why everybody fussed over the exceptional Margaret Fuller, instead choosing to focus on her appearance. Over time, however, with her ardent oratory skills, tremendous writing ability, and quick study, she won him over. Unfortunately, by then, Margaret was off-put by his aloof manner and sensibilities. Like most relationships, once you meet one person, you start to meet their friends. And so Margaret met and began to keep company with the Concord Transcendentalist group. She met Bronson Alcott, who was in need of a replacement teacher for his free-thinking school in Boston. Once the school closed down for being too free-thinking, she worked in a bookshop of Elizabeth Peabody and organized lectures and discussion circles for women. These groups ended supporting her financially for over 5 years. Margaret never stopped writing. It was the center to her soul. She wrote and edited for The Dial, Emerson's transcendentalist journal. It was a tremendous feat. Also during this time, she became verdant in her Unitarian faith. She wrote her own personal credo after listening to lectures from William Ellery Channing. She became passionate about women's rights, publishing her first book, Woman in the 19th Century. In her book, she wrote the clearest and most logical assertion for women's independence to date. Finally, in 1846, Margaret set sail as a foreign correspondent in Europe. She traveled through England, Scotland, France, and finally Italy. Turns out, though, Margaret showed up just when the first Italian Revolution was beginning. She began writing, as she put it, as a historian and actor in the war. During this time, she met and fell in love with Giovanni Osseoli. They had a son in 1848. When the war reached Rome, Giovanni went to fight, and Margaret began working in the hospital. By the time the war was over, they had no desire to stay in Rome, and went to Florence to live with other literary figures. Margaret continued writing her book about the Revolution and enjoyed the rest. By 1850, they felt the pull back to the United States, though. Their trip was fraught with disaster. The ship's captain became sick and died. Their baby became sick, but did recover. The new captain was inexperienced and steered them into a hurricane. Finally, just ashore of New York, they struck a sandbar. The ship had catastrophic damage. While some of the crew survived, Margaret, Giovanni, and their son did not. Emerson sent Henry David Thoreau immediately to try and search the wreckage, to no avail. The family died on July 19, 1850. Margaret is remembered as an incredible writer, impassioned speaker, and lifelong Unitarian. Ever a learner and educator, let us remember her passion that she loved to share with others. As she so aptly put it, if you have knowledge, let others light their candles in it. Thank you for learning about Margaret Fuller with me. To learn more about the lives of Unitarian Universalists throughout history, visit us at uuoftheweek.org.
I'm Liz Solander, the Religious Education Assistant at the First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City. Today, we are going to check out what is in the Wonder Box. It is Silent Spring, the book written by Rachel Carson, which helped spark the environmental movement in America and helped inspire the establishment of Earth Day. I'm going to tell a story about how that happened that I adapted from Rachel Carson Shapes Tomorrow by Greta Anderson. You might remember from a past episode of UU of the Week that this book was dedicated to honorary Unitarian Albert Schweitzer. And here it is right there. It says, "To Albert Schweitzer, who said, 'Man has lost the capacity to foresee and to forestall. He will end by destroying the earth,'" which is a dark note to start a book on. But perhaps you can see why this little book started an entire environmental movement focused on change. Our story about Rachel starts with better living through chemistry. This was the motto of one of America's leading corporations in the 1950s. Chemicals could make better clothing. Chemicals could improve food, not to mention food packaging. Chemicals could increase farm yields and improve our environment. Chemicals had helped us win the Second World War and would help us win future wars. Magazine and television ads and billboards shouted the message to the public. Better living through chemistry was the American way. Marine biologist Rachel Carson disagreed. A marine biologist is a scientist who studies the oceans and the plants and animals that live there. Being a female scientist was already unusual, but Rachel Carson decided to differentiate herself even more by using her expertise and her voice to educate the American people about what those chemicals were doing to the environment and to us. Carson was both a marine biologist and a writer. As much as she was fascinated by the creatures of the ocean and their intricate, interconnected web, she loved to share her fascination with the public by writing successful books about the ocean. In her books, life was everywhere. Life was diverse, and life was a celebration. This sense of celebrating all forms of life made Rachel's writing different. People in the United States were used to being told that they were at the top of the food chain, that other life on Earth existed to serve us. This idea was a human-centered idea, that the world was made for us and that we are the most important creature in it. Instead, Rachel's vision was biocentric or life-centered. Her books helped people appreciate joyfully that we humans are just one part of the nature's web of life. Rachel used her life-centered approach to biology to show people that we are all connected through the web of life and that we are also connected to the planet. So, when America began using atomic bombs in World War II, she spoke out. And she also spoke out about a pesticide called DDT, which was sprayed all over America to kill insects. But the chemicals started to kill the birds too and wreaked havoc all the way up the food chain, even making people sick. And even Rachel Carson was sick too. She had stomach ulcers and was in the early stages of breast cancer, and yet she decided to start the fight of her life. She gathered data to show how chemistry was not giving us better living, but was harming life. Originally, she called her book Man Against Nature, but the book she published as Silent Spring argued that spraying chemicals like DDT endangered life, including human life. To convince her readers, Rachel included information from hundreds of scientific studies and explained them in language that the public could understand. She took care to avoid errors or exaggerating. She knew she must be ready to back up every statement 100%, or the chemical companies could discredit her whole work. Rachel Carson knew she had one chance to change the course of history. Rachel had many friends in the scientific community who helped her fact check and fine-tune the book before its release. After its release, Silent Spring leaped onto the bestseller list. And yes, the government and industry spokespeople tried to discredit Rachel for being sentimental or hysterical, for being a back-to-nature type, and probably a communist. But the many, many people who saw her on a television show saw a frail, clear-eyed woman with a detailed, objective truth to tell. On the other hand, the government officials responsible for the spraying of DDT had very few facts to prove that it was safe. The public sensed that Rachel was right. The debate about pesticide use sparked by Silent Spring helped build the environmental movement in the 60s. In 1970, the government formed the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. In 1972, the government banned the use of DDT in the United States. That same year, Earth Day was proclaimed. We will celebrate Earth Day this Thursday, April 22nd. Just like we do every week, I challenge you to ponder the seventh principle and decide how you are a part of the interconnected web. What can you do to become a person of the earth and care for it? Rachel Carson died shortly after the publication of Silent Spring. One could say it's a shame she could not witness the growth of the environmental movement that she did so much to create. But for Rachel, life was not about the individual. It was about diverse communities of beings that continuously recycle and renew life. And in this sense, Rachel's courage, her vision of life, and her fierce argument against pesticides have become part of us. How will we live that vision in our lifetime? What courage of ours will inform the next generation? I can't wait to find out. But thank you for joining me for this edition of the Wonder Box. You can find more information about the First Unitarian Church at slcuu.org. See you next time.
Each person is important. To be kind in all you do. 3, help each other.